Hey ARKS, Silhouette here, this time not late. The 7th has come around, and with it, a new urgent quest has finally been added to the rotation, and has been rapidly fired at the player base in quick succession. Crimson Fellwyrm Over the Castle sees you, and the other 11 players that you'll blame for wiping the party, facing off against the legendary Elytron Dragon in a 3-phase battle atop the Quinto Royal Castle on Omega. In my personal opinion, this urgent quest is not quite as difficult as some others, but nevertheless can be a bit tough if you're not aware of the mechanics at play and your intended role in this high-stakes battle, especially in the rematch battle that follows. This urgent quest follows the same formula you're probably used to at this point, after Deus Eska and Yamato V2. The first urgent quest has a multi-party of 12 players fighting their way up the castle and driving the dragon back to the uppermost level. While doing so, you'll be battling through hordes of supernatural enemies while dodging the attacks from the dragon, all the while fighting your way up the castle and to the encounter with the dragon itself. The rematch encounter, Black Fellwyrm Rises from Ruin, starts 30 minutes after the first UQ hits the counter, and will be restricted to 4 players who meet their level requirements. Unlike Deus Eska and Yamato V2, the rematch encounter does not skip ahead to the encounter with the dragon, and your party will still need to fight some supernatural enemies before engaging the Black Dragon. To celebrate the release of this UQ, triggers for both quests have been distributed to all players, and we can expect more of them to show up in the Fresh Find shop, probably replacing the Iron Assault triggers that are in there once they've run their course. This quest will be good for farming out several new 13-star Val series weapons, which can be upgraded into 14-star Atlas weapons once you have enough Chronos Eternastones, which also drop from this quest. This could very well be the first set of 14 stars you manage to get your hands on, unless you've been particularly lucky with Buster quests up to this point. Black Fellwyrm also has a set of new 14-star weapons that it could drop, so that should give you plenty of reason to be digging into this encounter at every opportunity. So with that said, let's get into it. The first phase of this quest sees you fighting your way up to the castle ramparts, going through several waves of supernatural enemies while the Elytron Dragon attempts to stymie your approach with fire waves and meteors. These 2 attacks aren't particularly hard to see coming if you're keeping your eyes out, as both have indicators on the ground where they'll strike. The fire wave in particular is a column that will affect the whole portion of this very long arena, so be mindful of that. Once you've dispatched any number of goblins, ghouls, minotaurs, and golems, a catapult will appear at the final barrier, allowing you access to the frightful dragon himself in the second phase. Keep an eye out when you're jumping up here, as the dragon sometimes likes to perform sweeping fire waves a few times once players start entering this area, and if you happen to time it poorly, you could be catapulted right into one. Dodge through or guard against the waves or fireballs that come your way, and quickly close the distance, as they cannot hit you if you're behind the dragon's head. While not quite as large as any of the other big boys we've seen so far in this game, he's still big enough for your first order of business to be chipping away at his toes. Give the Ephron Dragon the manicure of his lifetime, and be careful to not accidentally target his meaty legs. It doesn't really cause any problems, but it will cause you to do significantly less damage, and they are in close proximity, so it's very easy to accidentally strike them instead. During this time, you'll likely start to see new attacks begin to surface. Most are pretty simple and minor, such as the dragon using its claws or legs to swipe at the player, or sweep its tail here to there, and can be dodged or guarded against or simply avoided by not being in the area. Others are more complex, so let's give them a quick rundown. Occasionally, the dragon will rear up and breathe fire directly onto the ground in front of it. This can look like it has a much bigger range than it actually does if you are, say, right on top of its feet, but just move back and away from the dragon once you see the indicator, or play a game of the floor is lava and stay above the fire by jumping and attacking. Every now and then, usually when you're finally getting into the fingernail polish, the dragon will have a hissy fit and start flapping its wings, pushing you and everyone else back, while also summoning meteors all around itself. It'll also summon smaller meteors that will target player locations specifically, usually in the middle of the bigger meteors. During this time, you won't be able to move towards the dragon until just before the meteors hit. With some timing, you could potentially charge in and resume attacking, or dodge the meteors, but it's generally safer and easier to just move away from the dragon, let the meteors fall, and then charge back in. The dragon will occasionally light up the ground with a fiery whirlwind, but these tend to be more spread out in the field and not quite as often underneath the dragon itself, where you'll be. Stay out of the indicating area, and you should be fine. Every now and then, the Elytron Dragon will decide he wants to show off some of his sick parkour moves, and he'll rise up before performing a neat backflip. While this backflip itself is pretty cool and damaging to anyone unlucky enough to be caught in the way of it, His tail also happens to drag upon the surface of the castle, which will cause several debris chunks to fly off at you. Keep them in mind when you move away or dodge the flip, as these tend to only really catch players off guard when they don't know that they're coming. Once you and your friends have finished painting up the nails and letting them dry, Alice the Sword Maiden will decide it's time to begin the weight loss program. She'll send several copies of the Laconium sword into the arena, usually up to 3 at a time, for all of you to fight over. The Laconium sword functions sort of like an AIS, in that it provides you a whole different palette and moveset, and serves as an extra life bar which is dispersed when you die. Don't die. But most importantly, is required to attack those glowing blue spots all over the dragon, starting with the chest and then one of the wings usually. Slap those meaty pecs until they turn orange, which will break them and give your non-sorty-boardy friends a chance to beat on them as well for full damage. If you are using the Laconium sword, this is your priority. Attack all blue spots ceaselessly in order to open them up to attack from the whole party. It's worth noting the attached PA that comes with the sword allows you to charge after a target, good for clearing an area or chasing a weak point on the dragon when he moves, but you can also hold down the normal attack to charge it until you hold it behind your back for a great deal more damage. Once you've done your part there and beat up the Elite Four dragon's wings a bit, it'll decide to give it a test drive and fly outside the arena, leaving you and your team to man the cannons on the ramparts. The dragon will make several passes, firing meteorites down upon you that you'll need to shoot down so they don't flatten you. Eventually, he'll stop moving for a moment in order to fire a great huge meteor that will slowly bear down on you, and still pepper you with smaller meteorites from behind it. Focus fire on the great meteor, while changing target briefly to deal with the incoming meteorites. If this attack connects, it will deal lethal damage and immediately move to phase 2, but you'd probably like to go there with your limbs attached and less burns. After destroying the meteor, you'll be given an opportunity to attack the dragon's wings again, and a Laconium sword will spawn. You'll need to do this at least twice until you've broken both wings, and will be able to climb up to the next part of the castle for the final phase. The third phase largely has all the same moves as before, but this time they're a bit more aggressive and ferocious as per normal. The dragon itself is a lot more mobile as well, so be careful while chasing it around and make sure you don't eat a fire wave or a meteorite on the way. Otherwise, you're primarily following the same routine. Get Laconium sword, attack glowy blue spot to break them, and then pile on. Of note, the weak spots will periodically appear on the dragon's legs after dealing enough damage to his toes, but there usually is a head and tail weak point during this time. Attack the tail first. Once it is broken, it will stun the dragon and cause him to lower his head, so everyone can give that a good bop in too. Once you've dealt enough damage to the Exxon dragon, it'll decide that it has had enough with the whole standing and fighting routine, and instead fly up and away from the stage, positioning itself for a fairly lethal flyby attack. The dragon flies straight across, so just make sure he isn't lined up with you and move away from his path if he is, before returning to the stage for you to rinse and repeat. The final change-up comes when the dragon once again stops his normal cycle, covers himself in a fiery aura, changes the environment by massive pollution, and then flies off the stage once again. He will cover the extremities of the stage in a fiery swath, hurting all players into the smaller area. Then proceed to perform his flyby attack twice more before firing a series of fireballs into the stage. I, personally, find it easier to deal with this series of attacks by moving toward the ramparts after his flybys, but do whatever feels good for you. Thereafter, he'll dive into the area with a very lethal attack which you'll need to steer clear of. Or, you can just Dark Blast into Luther and fly above the arena, away from danger the whole time, while laughing at the poor souls down below as they frantically try to avoid death. Up to you. After this, 12 Laconium swords will spawn and you'll need to DPS the dragon down. He has very little HP remaining, and his moveset is no different from his last phase, and before long you should have earned the title of Dragonslayer. As far as the rematch battle goes, you'll be facing off against the Atolm Dragon, a black variant of the former Elytron dragon, but this time with only 4 players. That said, it's really not that different from last time. In this encounter, the black dragon has approximately 40% of the health of the red dragon and takes 50% less damage, a lot like Deus Ex Gratia, and only a single Laconium sword will spawn at a time until the end of the fight. This quest used to have a 3 death limit in JP, but that was removed eventually in 2019. Because of that, there's really no real difference, and frankly you can treat the battle as a longer version of the former one. If you're having any trouble with either of these encounters, especially the Black Dragon one, the upgraded supernatural weapons, such as the Golem Grafoil, have an alternate potential similar to the Ice series of weapons. where they deal more damage to the Black Dragon and cause you to take less damage. They also deal good damage against Supernaturals as a whole, so this works against the Red Dragon as well. So if for whatever reason you really need that extra boost, there you go. With all this information, you should be as prepared as you possibly can be to fight back the Crimson Fellwyrm of Legend, and to earn yourself a fancy title and emote. And as always, the loot beckons us all, so we must fight. Good luck, ARKS Ops! And that's it, guys. It's a brand new game with encounters like this coming daily. I hope this guide helps you in some way and that your runs go well. If it does, or if you like my content, or if you just think I'm a really cool guy, then maybe consider liking this video or subscribing to my channel, or both. I like those things, it's nice to see it, and I genuinely get good vibes from it. Sorry to everyone out there about the Wednesday stream. I had to take my cat to the vet. She unfortunately had to have an eye removed. And I've just been spending some time with her, getting her adjusted after surgery and keeping her calm, so I kind of fell asleep with her on my recliner, and I missed the stream. Shoutouts to my Alliance Affirm for running these UQs and triggers with me, as well as Animena and Salsini for organizing a few of their own during one of the former streams. To all the players we met along the way, thanks for everything, and I hope you got good drops. This is Silhouette, I'm signing off. May you all have all the rare drops.